Patriots held their first open organized team activities session today, and perhaps the biggest news of the day was the guys who were not on the field. We will start off with Tom Brady. No one expected him to be out there since he wasn't there for the first OTA overall on Monday. Matt, my question for you, is this a big deal?
I don't think it's a big deal, but it's news. I mean, I think the notion that he's not involving himself in the team activities, the first time it's sort of team related, it didn't surprise me that he wasn't involved in the workout portions. Didn't necessarily surprise me in phase two to not want to be a part of Indy drills. If he's sort of said he's going to take this time away with his family, he's going to train a different way. That transition makes sense to me when you hit 40 years old and you start thinking about the finish line as far as longevity. Stretching that thing as far into the 40s as possibly can.
Yeah, it is strange. The reports out there is that Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski have both been spending their time at the TB12 Center, which is just right over there. So for Brady's teammates, do you think it's a little weird for them that they're all out there on the field practicing, grinding it out? Tom Brady is probably 5 minutes away, but he's not out there with them.
Well, I think, just think of this logistically, what you would have to do if you were Tom. And again, you're negotiating at home with your family for more time with them so that they're okay and on board with you going into your mid-40s with this career. I think in part you have to look if he were to choose to continue to do this. So he continues to go to wire through OTAs and workouts and all those things, but he has a core belief in what gets done at TB12. And were he to continue to sort of adhere to that core belief, that would make him do this, then that. It's doubling up the time, quite frankly.
Yeah, and you do raise a good point, because he does have to do both. You would have to do OTAs, then go to TB12, and if you're going to TB12 after OTAs, then you're probably not getting home until 5 or 6, and then that really does start to kind of family time a little bit in there. Rob Gronkowski also not out on the practice field, as we alluded to earlier. This feels like maybe a little bit of a different situation. How do you look at it?
Yeah, we know that there's been reports anyhow that they're reworking a deal, so that may be a portion of this, that you don't want to put yourself out in a liability situation until that thing's extended it as you like it. But I think beyond that, remember, he's a guy that has basically not taken part in training camps for several years. Well, a training camp is a much higher bar, a much greater level of sort of intensity than any of these things. So if he's a guy who's sort of learned that there's this new system that I love, it plays at an all-pro level a year ago, adhering to that TB12 system, he's different than everyone else in the locker room. And I know we hammer home the point of team and the Patriot way and all that kind of stuff, but it's not as if there weren't always players who were on a little bit different program than us, and they had earned the right to do that. So I mean, I'm not going to go through a list of names, but you know them. And if you have a problem with that as a player in the locker room, well, then you need to achieve at that level. And we're talking about the best tight end ever and the best quarterback ever, and the best tight end ever who has a pretty extensive injury history. To me, when they start missing mandatory things, when they start missing, times where they have to be here, then we have an issue. Until then, it's just so what for me.
It does feel a little bit weird for guys to maybe be putting the individual ahead of the team, but if, like you said, and obviously I trust you on this, that there has always kind of been that special guys in there, then it certainly makes things a little bit different in there. One final guy, or a couple final guys who were not out at practice, these look like they're injury related. Linebacker HIGHTOWER, wide receiver Malcolm Mitchell, defensive end Trey Flowers. I guess just how concerned should we be about this, and how did the Patriots manage injuries during these spring sessions?
Yeah, the injuries are an interesting portion to this, and I would say any guy that has an injury that's managing something that, we sort of have tiers to this. Every guy has their own sort of separate situation, and I would just simply put it this way. Not necessarily participating with a greater team doesn't mean you're not doing what's best for the team. Sometimes what's best for the team is taking care of you first. You kind of have to sort of manage both considerations. So I look at things like this where, you and I and a lot of the other guys here work in the media, we learn a lot about where guys are with their bodies, quite frankly. You learn that, maybe a guy had a little procedure we didn't realize he was dealing with. 5, 6, 7, 8 new names show up there, and yeah, they probably got cut on. They probably got worked on, and they're managing themselves up to the part that matters, which is training camp.
I think the one really interesting guy who wasn't out there is Malcolm Mitchell. He was at practice on Monday. There were pictures of him with his knee heavily taped. They're not out there on Tuesday. They've always kind of managed his injuries, even since he was a rookie. So we'll basically just have to check the pictures, see the next time we're out here for an open OTA session to see if Mitchell actually can take the field again.